Hello, I apologize for any mic issues, background noise. It sounds like poop. Sorry. I bought a good mic. I thought that'd be good enough. It wasn't. I still haven't managed to learn audio engineering things to make it sound better, and I'm just too lazy sometimes. I was recently watching a bit of Sargon of Akkad, where he basically explains male feminists. And it was for reference, it was, I'll put the link in the description, it was Matthew Drake, I think, Animated Philosophy, and he does a little animation along with Sargon's, musings about male feminists. And I thought I might make a video as to why I'm not a male feminist anymore. Now up front, I'm going to give those who would disagree with this video an argument. I think the most detrimental argument against me, other than arguing my current beliefs, is that, well, you weren't in feminism enough to be inoculated against bad ideas and sophistry. Well, the problem with that is I was friendly to feminism, and then I listened to the arguments of the anti-feminists, and I've been doing so for the past 3 or 4 years, actually longer than that. And I've come to my own conclusions, essentially. I don't agree with all the anti-SJWs on everything, and I, especially when it comes to their proclivity towards sex positivity. I'm a conservative Christian, not primarily, but I'm a conservative Christian, and so I tend to be sex negative. And that's actually, I think, what makes feminism very popular for a lot of religious individuals, currently religious in the past, etc., is sex negative feminism very much touches on those those thoughts and ideas, and also sex negative feminism really does play on victimology. So I got into feminism as a result of a feminist professor at a local college. Took a sociology class, which it was very interesting, but I didn't learn as much as I thought I could, because she just wouldn't shut up about feminism and social justice and feminism and women's rights and minority issues and white privilege. It was like, okay, but what about sociology, right? What about actual sociology? And she was like, oh, everyone loves my class. And it's like, look, okay, I learned in your class. I did, but I didn't learn so much about sociology as I did about feminist philosophy, social justice, and all that stuff. I didn't take a feminist social justice class, although, to be frank, I probably would not have had it been offered. So, but it felt, I guess, so it's like, you got me, you put your ideas in my head, and I wasn't really prepared for it. And I remember walking out of that class having a new understanding, feeling like the world had been opened up to me, like a whole new world had been presented to me. It was sort of like somebody had taken the drapes and had drawn back the curtain and was like, look at all those oppressions. And I thought, well, dear God, they're there in plain sight. How come no one has noticed these things before? And I remember very much feeling like it was the case that most women were victims. They were oppressed in some way. They were held down by husbands or whatever. I grew up in a conservative Christian community. So while the sort of tenets of sex negativity and toxic masculinity immediately appealed to me, it also did appeal to this sort of idea of patriarchal traditional family relationships where the man does all the hard manly work and the woman does all the nurturing and the childcare, and it shouldn't be that way. And I remember walking out of that class really being impacted by having my sort of sex negativity solidified and being like, dear God, there's objectification everywhere. Because one of the nice things about me was I don't watch many films, and despite my gaming, I don't play modern AAA games. I grew up, didn't play rated M games. It's just parents were like, nope, you ain't doing it. So I didn't do it. I didn't play Gears of War, Spec Ops: The Line, Halo, God of War, and so like Anita Sarkeesian then showed up and gives her whole spiel. And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I was like, yeah, Why do women have to be seen as weak? Yeah. How come women keep having to be the victims? Yeah. Women in the fridge stuff. That's jacked up, man. Hey, why are women always like, sexual objects and background decoration, eh? Hey, how come Peach is all emotional and all that stuff? And I was just very much, boom, hook, line, and sinker. I was all for it. And, and I really did carry myself as if, it's very interesting when you start thinking about when you start thinking about philosophy, you realize that a lot of ideas have certain assumptions about them. That somebody gives you an idea and they say, hey, look, I don't know, like, for example, let's just go right for the belly of the beast. Universal healthcare is great because everybody can have access to healthcare. Oh, you know what? Gosh darn it, that does sound like a good idea. But barring all of the arguments against the effectiveness of universal healthcare, one of the core tenets of the argument for universal healthcare is taxes. And one of the core things about taxes is it is, at least as the system currently stands, extortion. It is the government threatening me with bodily harm really the government says, we'll put you in a cage unless you pay us X amount of dollars per year. I agree to pay the X amount of dollars per year precisely because I don't want to be thrown into a cage. Just because I agree to pay the X amount of dollars per year does not make that no longer extortion. And, and so that's one of my objections to universal health care and Social Security as a whole is it's like, okay, yeah, fine. Even barring all of the arguments, there's that underlying philosophy that says it's okay to take people's money because we're doing good things with it. And it's very interesting to watch people squirm and especially just get indignant when you attack that root motivation. Say, oh, so it's okay to take people's money if you're doing good things with it. Some people will say, yeah. And then some people will say, well, but taxation, that's not, and then they'll kind of like, they'll pussyfoot around the issue like taxation it's social contracts and my social contract and it's always been there so we should just accept it because it's always there and like there's nothing you can do about it, blah blah blah. And it's like this sounds a lot like the arguments people would have been making for slavery, but hopping off that rabbit trail and hopping back onto the original track, feminism carries with it one of the fundamental assumptions of modern feminist ideology is that men and women are essentially the same. And there are some feminists who will go as far as to argue that men and women are biologically the same in terms of, let me rephrase, that men and women are physiologically the same. Why can't men and women do the exact same tasks? It come to find out, men have approximately, on average, 2 to 3 times more strength than women, just as a general rule. Men hit harder. We have greater muscle density, greater strength. Our bone density is actually greater than women's, I think. And Joe Rogan has pointed this out, that men hit different than women do. Just the way the punches come and go is different. And, whether or not that's not a social construct, that's biological. And I remember thinking, well, okay, men and women are biologically different. I'll grant it. I became an anti-feminist. I'm kind of hopping around here, but I became an anti-feminist when I heard there were anti-feminists. And I was like, anti-feminists? Like, clearly these are just staunch traditionalists who don't like the idea of a woman having a job and a career. I was like, surely these are just guys who are very set in their ways and they just really do not like the idea of women having agency completely 100%. And so I started watching some of their videos when it was right around the Gamergate thing, right around in that kind of the pre-Gamergate a little bit. Because I remember when Gamergate happened was really when that was when I started watching a lot of Sargon, but I watched a whole lot of Total Biscuit. Total Biscuit, your honesty was important during the Gamergate thing. Let me just tell you. I mean, anti-SJW or not, you were honest. And you gave things criticism when it deserved it. And that's a blessing for me and for many others. But I remember as, anti-feminist, what are these guys are probably just really strict, staunch traditionalists who just don't like the idea of a woman having complete agency, right? And So I watched them. I was like, well, I want to hear what these guys have to say. And so the first anti-feminist I watched was Internet Aristocrat. And he was just so crass and biting and sarcastic. I was like, this guy's whatever. But then I remember they'd kind of like have hangouts. And Sargon of Akkad, well, I was like, oh, his guy sounds reasonable. That's probably the British accent. But so I watched his videos. And I can't find it. I don't remember what was the first Sargon of Akkad video that I watched. But I remember thinking, I can kind of see where he's coming from. I can kind of see it. And then I watched, and at this point, this was when I was like, Anita Sarkeesian, who would be against what Anita Sarkeesian says? Surely it's just, butthurt traditionalists. And so it's like, oh, what's this Thunderfoot video Anita Sarkeesian busted? Watched it, was completely convinced. I was like, these arguments make sense to me. He just laid it out in a very obvious way. And so I was like, well, maybe feminism isn't all I thought it was. And then Anita Sarkeesian did the stupid thing. She made that one video where it was like women, I think it was women as background decoration or something like that, where like basically there's like a whole bunch of stuff surrounding Anita Sarkeesian. She just was very shady, shadowy character, and it made it really hard to believe that she was being honest. And there was a bunch of other stuff, like the one moment that I think the internet really was like, this girl, what, is when she was like, she basically said the female in Dying Light was the victim. And Total Biscuit was like, you actually end up getting saved by her in the beginning of the game. So she's not just the plaything between these two guys, but she's an integral part of the story. And you need to shut up and, talk about real things. I remember in my more feminist-friendly days, I liked the video by Jonathan McIntosh. It was 10 gamer privilege, white male gamer privilege checklist stuff. And about a year ago, I went back and I watched Karen Strawn respond to that, as well as somebody else respond to that particular list. And I thought, yeah, okay. Because the problem with feminism, and the reason why I don't like it, is it's a lot of feels. It's not even so much feels over reals, it's just feels. It's like, well, I feel like women are put in a position where, they're caregivers and they're lovers, and that's why they make up 98% of nurses. And I feel like men, because they're told that they should be strong and that they should be physical, that they make up 98% or 99% of lumberjacks or something, for example. Or like, women, why can't women aspire to be doctors? And, for a while that was a relatively compelling argument for me, until Jordan Peterson slapped me upside the head with a truckload of scientific research. I actually remember arguing with it about a friend. She said that James Damore, the Google memo guy, was just an absolute misogynist and he was a horrible person. And I said, well, did you read the memo? And she said, well, no. And I said, because there's actually a lot of scientific citations in there. It's not just some dude's misogynistic ramblings. There's science. And I went through and explained the Jordan Peterson stuff, which of course James Damore pretty much quotes a lot of Peterson stuff. And I remember she was like, wait a minute, so you're telling me that men are more disagreeable than women, that men are just, oh, grr, I hate people. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not even so much my opinion, it's just, that's the numbers. That's the science. Like, that's not me saying, well, I feel like men are more disagreeable. This is me saying this is how it is. And that's another thing that feminists tend to do. Is there's a video between Gavin McInnes and two other feminists that is kind of becoming, but it's a decent argument. It's a good video to watch because of the arguments, and Gavin cusses toward the end, but it's a good video to watch because this is the arguments. It's like, well, women should be able to do career things, and Gavin is like, okay, fine, but we shouldn't deny the fact that women tend to be happier at home, that women tend to prefer more nurturing roles, and that men tend to conquer and men tend to be disagreeable and assertive and aggressive. And the other feminist was like, well, I think that's just disgusting. And what the other guy was like, well, my wife is an engineer and a dean of I think he was like a dean of medicine or something, so that invalidates your argument. And he was like, oh, whatever, one story, one anecdotal evidence, that's what it's called, you loser. And it's like, that's what feminists do. They'll be like, well, my mom is a strong, independent woman who's a doctor. And it's like, okay, congratulations, your mom's a doctor. That doesn't mean that women should make up 50% of doctors. I mean, and And another thing, and this is the thing that feminists do, is they often, I feel like, and I mean, people do this, but I observe this with a lot of feminists, is that they take is statements as an ought. Meaning that you say, hey, men are generally more disagreeable than women. Oh, so you're saying that women should just be subservient? No, I'm stating a fact. Men are generally more disagreeable than women. Fact. Women tend to be people. Fact. It's just, these are, they're generalizations, but they're trends that we can notice in a certain direction, and we notice them enough to confidently say that they make up XYZ portion of the, right, the bell curve or whatever. There's that famous MEP who Piers Morgan lambasted. Piers Morgan was an idiot. I can't even believe that he would even remotely walk away from that conversation thinking, I showed him. Because he does the thing. He confuses is for ought. That argument is nothing but a big is for ought fallacy. Okay, that man is not saying that women ought to earn less than men. He's not saying that all women are stupid. He's saying that as a general rule, women fall lower on the IQ distribution than men. This is a fact. This is an is. This is not an ought. This is not a women ought to have lower IQ than men. This is an is, right? And this is one of the things that makes the alt-right so powerful, is the alt-right will make a lot of is statements, and everybody will just assume that every statement the alt-right is making is oughts. Black people are stupider, and therefore, or like they're just making baseless claims. No, they're stating facts. The IQ distribution of African Americans is smaller than the IQ distribution of white people. Now, that being said, the IQ distribution of Asian people is higher than it is in white people. So it's like, superior race my rear. But, frankly, I'm not about that life. I'm more concerned about ideas than I am about the color of your skin. I don't care if you have an IQ of 70. If you're willing to uphold Western Judeo-Christian values, you're on my team, But the moment you want to use coercion and authoritarianism to accomplish your non-Western, non-Christian Judeo values, we can't be friends. We can't be allies. Sure, I'll have conversations with people, but we can't be allies. We're not on the same team. And just because we have the same enemies doesn't mean we're on the same team. It's like, oh, we're the alt-right, we're fighting against SJW, bro. Like, yeah, cool. All right. You want to make a, response video against an SJW, and I'll make one too. We have the same enemies. Big freaking deal. Like, no wonder we're on the same side, technically, of the political compass. You're authoritarians, and I'm not. We cannot be allies. Sorry. We have the same enemies, and to some extent, I suppose, we have kind of the same goals. We want those enemies to go away, but the means by which we go about accomplishing those goals and the vision for society that we have is different. A white nationalist wants a white ethno-state. I don't want a white ethno-state. There's, I'm not convinced. But we're talking about feminism. I was very much convinced that men and women were basically the same, except for, some biological differences, some testosterone and estrogen, and, some obviously physical differences. But, other than that, it was like, well, why can't women do X, Y, and Z? And it's very interesting, though, because it always centers around positions of power. And there's a reason why people point these out, is you don't usually have people, people will say, well, women can't be lumberjacks. And everybody kind of shrugs their shoulders and go, fine. But the moment somebody says a woman can't be, president, or not even, is there anybody out there who's saying that women can't be CEOs of corporations? Because there are female CEOs of corporations. The argument now is that this shouldn't be a norm. And that's Jordan Peterson's whole point. It's like, the question is not, why don't we have more women as lawyers? The question is, why do we have anybody as lawyers at all? It's crazy, stupid, competitive work 60 to 80 hour work weeks all the time. You know, lots of work, lots of competition, lots of stress. Why does anybody do that? And of course, Peterson says, well, it's because men want to be at the top of the dominance hierarchy because that's where the goods are, right? If you're at the top of the dominance hierarchy, you're going to get a good wife, generally speaking. You'll probably get a wife of good moral character and integrity and all that. Of course, now the MGTOWs are screeching. So calm down, guys. It's a ramble. It's all over the place. But that's my journey from feminism to non-feminism. Although I remember thinking the white privilege stuff was kind of dumb. I remember just kind of mulling about it and trying to figure, like, what white privilege? I don't see it. Because I looked at my grandfather's life and I was like, he was dirt poor, literally. He had 2 pair of pants and 3 shirts until he was 18. I think it was 18. And then he decided, you know what? I'm tired of living on a farm, scraping by for my existence. I'm going to go to college. And of course his family were like, whatever, you big city boy, And as a result, he doesn't have a whole lot of interaction with his family to this day, just because he's really, just even intellectually speaking, head and shoulders above them. Probably even mannerisms, manner-wise, he's head and shoulders above them. Of course, I don't know if that's true. It may just be my misconception, but certainly it was the case that he was all like, this country life, I'm not cut out for it. And his family was like, what do you mean you're not cut out for it? So he goes off and works his tail off. Took him 12 years because he went to night school and worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Took him 12 years to get a college degree, but he did. Made a truckload of money, and now he's got it all, man. He's got a nice house, nice cars, a loving family. They're all pretty close by for the most part. They all love him. Everybody adores him. He's got a good life, man. He's involved at his church. He feels like he's making a difference in people's lives, And he's got enough money to where he doesn't have to chew his nails off every night like he used to do. And some people would say, well, that's white privilege for you. And it's like, what privilege, mate? He fought tooth and nail for everything he has. Well, he didn't have to fight as hard as black people. Yeah, what about those black people that are born into wealth, huh? Oh, their dads had to fight tooth and nail. Look, nobody's arguing that racism in the 60s didn't affect life. And I would say that white privilege exists insofar as there are probably remnants of the past, sort of like a ripple effect, right? That, well, it's sort of like, if you've got a city over here and a city over there, and you bomb one city, and you come back 20 years later, and you're like, oh, well, why aren't they the same? Well, gee, you bombed a city, man. And it's kind of like that with black people. It's like for a long time they were treated as second-class citizens. But that was a long time ago. And certainly within the past couple of decades, we've made huge strides in cultural and social attitudes towards races. And I don't see any evidence of institutional racism. Everyone screams about white cops killing black people and indiscriminate. Like, look, we got a police problem in America that goes beyond race, okay? The cops here they're too brutal. They're too authoritarian. And some people argue that cops in the UK are not authoritarian enough. Like, they're just a bunch of pansies. But, we need to kind of find that middle line, And it's sort of, we need more people to question the warrior cop, sheepdog type ethos. Think about the sheepdog thing, right? Basically, that's cops making me the sheep, right? I'm the little guy that's just like, oh, I don't know what's good for me. I don't know where the bad guys are. I can't defend myself. Like, yes, I can. Now, I don't have all the infrastructure and the weapons and the body armor and the police cars and the detective work and the machines and FBI crime labs to solve crimes in my own life. But I'm not just some defenseless little sheep just running around waiting to be mauled by some wolf. I don't need you telling me how to live my life. I can live my life just fine, thank you. I think police are important, but I think police are just too authoritarian and they have too little of an opinion of the general populace. And is there racism in police departments? I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. But it's kind of hard for me to sympathize it's kind of hard for me not to sympathize, rather, with police departments when, like, a huge percentage of crimes are committed by African American individuals, and they make up such a relatively small percentage of the American population. The odds are, if somebody's committing a crime, they're probably black. Well, no, let me backtrack that. The odds are, I don't remember what the exact statistics are. I feel like it's over half of criminals are black. But those statistics could also come from, mass incarcerations. And that's an issue, Although I think it's funny that people always go, mass incarcerations. It's like, yeah, that's what's destroying the black family, is all your dads are thugs. It's like, no, they're being thrown in jail because they're innocent. Oh, really? They're innocent. Well, maybe you need to bring some attention to that. But isn't it usually that they're caught up in some minor crime for the third time that week or something? Maybe that's racist of me to think that. Sorry. I just love how it's like even being suspicious of a black person is like racist. It's like, what, I'm supposed to just take your story at face value because you're black? Oh yeah, they're just throwing dads in jail left and right. Good, perfectly great dads. Let's not talk about the welfare system, which incentivizes single motherhood. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the mass incarceration. And let's just kind of just paint all black people with a broad stroke that they're all in there because of stupid reasons, right? Even though the statistics are that black on black crime is pretty dang high, especially compared to white on white crime, white on black crime, cop on black crime, black on cop crime. How did we get over here? We were talking about feminism. I mean, it really comes down to, I just thought about the issues. Well, I remember I was talking about white privilege. I remember the video my teacher showed us Tim Wise' lecture, which I would love to see Sargon refute. Maybe I'll give it a shot, but I don't think I have really the necessary, I don't think I'm of a necessary caliber to adequately refute, to rebut, rather, Tim Wise's white privilege thing. But we did watch a video, and it was like some white dudes and an Asian dude and a black dude. And we didn't watch the whole video, but we just watched like the beginning of it. And the black guy was like, man, every time I see a black guy walking down the street in a suit, I say to myself, man, I bet he can't wait to get home and act black. And I remember thinking, what the Sam Hill does that mean? Like, at first I empathized. I was like, oh no, he's got to act like a white man in corporate America. But then I was like, wait a minute, what does that even mean? I mean, I apologize if this sounds alt-right, but if acting white means acting civil and cordial, then yeah, you better act white. What does it mean to act? What does that mean to act black? To be loud and boisterous? Yeah, sorry, that's just not professional. Just as a general rule, no matter where you go, it's not professional to be loud and boisterous. And the problem with people is they think that the world should cater to their whims. No, it shouldn't. Look, if you're a creep, and that's why you're not getting dates, you shouldn't demand that the whole world change to suit your dating preferences. You should change. And that's the whole point of Peterson's clean your room, right? His whole point is, if the world's not going your way, operate as if it's your fault. And then once you get yourself sorted out, maybe you realize it wasn't your fault, but you're a better person for sorting yourself out. And he's like, I can't wait to act black. Like, what does that even mean, man? And it's like, that's the whole thing with the alt-right, is it's like, my white culture. What does that mean? What's white culture? Hamburgers? Like, what is white culture? The Brady Bunch? I don't... And it's like, what is uniquely white about that? Like, what's to say that black people can't look at the Brady Bunch and go, hey, that's my show? I mean, you got black people watching Game of Thrones. Is that not white culture? I guess not. Or it's like black people, they're conditioned to watch white culture and then overtake it because of a white genocide. Like, look, liberals aren't making it easy on themselves because they're demanding that white things be taken down, torn down, spat on, despised, looked down upon. It's like anything that has to do with white people, like history, especially, or philosophy or whatever. It's like, it's a bunch of white men. And it's like, do you not realize that you sound kind of like the Nazis being like, oh, it's all the Jews? Right? It's like, oh man, the modern media is full of nothing but a bunch of white men. It's like, and? It's like, you literally, that's the whole Jew thing, right? That's what that is, right? It's a whole Jew thing. Like, oh, the Jews, man, they're all in the media, man. Like, white men, dude. It's just a bunch of white men, bro. Like, why does the color of my skin and my genitalia mean anything? It shouldn't. I mean, not in the grand scale of things. I mean, if you want to say that, men are more given to certain attitudes in entertainment, like, oh, these are all movies made by men. Like, okay, look, I'll grant you. But filling it with black men isn't going to make a hill of beans worth a difference unless you fill it with black men who are ideologically opposed to those white men. And it's like, everyone goes around and they're always like, oh, white man, you're effing a white male. And then you wonder why the alt-right talks about white genocide. It's like, I mean, are you really shocked and surprised? You've been going around telling white men how basic they are and how unimportant they are and how authoritarian, lording over people, and you're oppressing me with your mere presence, and white men everywhere, like, white people need to stop, and white people need to shut up and listen, and why are you talking, you white male? And like, well, I mean, what did you expect? What did you expect? Did you not expect somebody to turn around and go, wait a minute, why am I being told what to do because of the color of my skin and the amount of chromosomes I carry? Why? Look, I'm not against giving you a voice, but why do I have to shut up? Because I'm white? Yeah, but I got life experience that you don't have. And just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm like rich or I don't know what hardship is. Well, you don't have it as bad as I do. Well, that's pretty racist. To assume that just because I'm white, I don't have it as bad as a black person. That's racist. That is. You are judging my life's experience based on the color of my skin. I mean, do I really have to say this, man? And I just remember watching that white privilege. And there was the Asian guy who was like, yeah, and I always go to office parties and everyone's like, oh, you were at the last one, right? It's like, haha, all us Asians look alike. It's like, yeah, because you're unfamiliar. It's just the way it works, man. You kind of blend together because you're a minority. I don't think I'm saying that right. I'm probably digging myself into a hole here. It's like, okay, and it's like, how oppressed do you have to be complained about being seen as, oh, I'm just one of the Asian guys? It's like, it works that way for all kinds of people. It works that way for, like, white people with glasses, white bald people with glasses, fat people. Just, excuse me. You could make an argument that it's like, oh, man, all us fat people look alike. Woe is me. It's like, that's oppression. That's white privilege, is that I don't get confused for another white guy, because I do. I've had lots of people be like, oh, I've seen you somewhere before, and I'm like, I look like Matt Damon. Does that help? Yes, it does. Oh, okay, thank you. Bye. Yeah, it's like, oh, I look like some famous actor. It's like I've seen you before somewhere. Nope, you haven't. I know faces. Never seen yours. No, but don't I? Nope. I guarantee I'm not on the cover of modeling. That's not on the cover of GQ. Guarantee you that there. Like, quit whining. And that's really what it comes down to. Is it's like, you're white and you get things like a nice home and 2 parents, and people assume that you're good, and people don't assume that I'm good because I'm black. It's like, like, what? My favorite are the black people who look like thugs, and they're like, why are people judging me? It's like, people judge you based on the way you look. Sorry. If you carry yourself like look at the white people who like talk like this, and they wear they wear dress shirts with the sleeves cut off, and they look like Larry the Cable Guy. And they walk around, they talk like this, and they live in trailer parks, and they kind of got stubble going on. They don't have the best body shape, and they're just kind of, hey, how you doing, stranger? How's it going? Oh, shoot, I don't know. Well, I mean, I think that could be north, but I could be wrong. Let me check the Google real quick. I mean, you think those people aren't judged? Think about the guy who comes to work covered in tats. He gets judged too. Or the guy who comes to work and just doesn't give a fart about being there. He just doesn't care. Or the guy that comes to work and he's just like a disgruntled kind of guy. He like, hey man, can you do this for me? Whatever. Like, he's going to be judged, right? What are the type of people that are typically in positions of power? They're typically very intelligent, very skilled, very charismatic. White. No, not white. I mean, maybe familiarity does breed some degree of, hey, you're a white guy just like me. But that's sort of implying that it's like, oh, a black man who qualifies for, but he's black. Do we want a black guy in this boardroom? Nah, Jerry, we don't want a black guy here. Like, that's those darn black people taking our jobs. Yeah, we're going to give the job to Jimmy. He's a white guy. It's like, it's called judging, and it exists. It's a human trait. Everybody does it. It's an extent of tribalism. Like, get used to it. Adapt to it. Maybe change it a little bit, right? Tattoos are more acceptable now. Beards are more acceptable now. It took a while, right? Because, I mean, like I'm a conservative Christian. Hi, how you doing? We most conservative Christians just do not like beards. Now, we're okay with a guy who has a beard, but if you're a guy who grows a beard, there's something wrong with you. It's weird, It's like, oh, you got a beard? That's cool. But you grew a beard? Are you backsliding in the church, boy? I mean, that's what it is, It's life, I'm not particularly happy about it. And you know what? I'm not going to let it bother me because it's the church, I really don't like the fact that I have to shave. I wish I didn't have to shave. I hate shaving with almost every fiber of my being because I get razor burn like nobody's business. I hate it. Or I'll cut myself. So if I don't get razor burn, I cut myself. Or I use shaving. Like, I have to wet shave all the time, and then I use shaving cream. And then I shave real nice and neat, do real good, and then I put on the aftershave, and I'll still get razor burn. And I'll still get, like, inflamed face. Like, I'll start itching at work and stuff. It's like, and that's not attractive. You have a little red spot in the bottom of your neck. But it's life. That's what happens. That's what you're in this life thing. Sorry. I'm sorry that you have to change how you behave to be more acceptable to certain people. But that's life. It's not because you're black. Because white people have to do it too. Do you think I'd get accepted at work if I went to a corporate meeting in, a Bahama Joe Hawaiian t-shirt, a pair of khaki shorts, walking in like, sup, how y'all doing? You think they'd hire me? No, they're going to hire me if I walk in with a suit. Hello, sir, how are you doing? Good afternoon. I mean, and it's like, like, this is the thing, right? Customer service call. Hi, thank you for calling, Fart Knockers Incorporated. How can I assist you today? Hey, thanks for calling Fort Knockers Incorporated. How can I assist you today? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh my God, this woman is just such a... Yes, ma'am. Yeah. No problem. No, hey, look, I'll transfer your call right away. Yes, ma'am. No, I apologize for the inconvenience. Oh my God. But, I mean, ma'am, I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm going to do whatever I can to get that settled for you right away, okay? Yeah, I'm going to transfer you to Tim, our manager, okay? All right. Yes, ma'am. No, I understand, ma'am. Yes, again, I apologize for the inconvenience. All right. Dude, Tim, look, she's pissed, man. Like, I don't freaking understand what her problem is. Like, we did the service that we said we'd do, but she's saying that we, like, forgot something. Can you help? Can you sort her out? Because you worked with her, right? Yeah, freaking man. Okay, ma'am. Yeah, Tim, I'm going to transfer your call to Tim, and he's going to take care of you. What was that about, dude? Oh, man, it's this woman. It's like, we took care of her, man, but, like, I don't know. She's saying we scratched her car. I don't understand. Like, we didn't. I drove it out. There was not a scratch on it when I drove the car out. And she's like yelling in my ear and chewing me out and saying that we didn't do everything we said we'd do. And like, we did it. Like, oh man, dude, wow, what a butt. Yeah, man. That's a perfect example of white people acting white, acting a certain way to get a certain position. It's what people do. When you're dating a girl, do you just let yourself loose? If you do, that's probably why you're single. You got to ease into it. I mean, I'm not particularly happy about the fact that women sort of expect a perfect 10 on a date. Because it's like, what you see is what you get. Are you going to complain, really? You really going to complain? But that's life. You go to a job interview, you're going to dress up nice. You're going to look nice. You're going to comb your hair, hopefully. Or you're going to show up with like gauges and tats and a tank top that says like, Judas Priest on it and be like, yeah, man, I just need like the money, bro. I want the money, bro. That's it. Are you going to do that? Really? And then you're going to get upset when they're like, nah, we don't want to hire this guy. He doesn't seem serious about the job. Well, of course you don't seem serious about the job. You didn't show up ready to work. You didn't show up looking good. You didn't act like you cared. You're slouching in your seat. You're like, I just want the money, bro. Like, what do you expect? Oh, that's tone policing. Yes, because the tone of your voice says something about the conversation, the tone of the conversation. If I'm going on a first date with somebody and I'm like angry the whole time and yelling at them, that says a lot about me. I was having a bad day. But, like that's going to set up a bad impression. Whereas if I go on a first date and I'm like super happy-go-lucky, everything's sunshine and lollipops, or maybe I had a bad day and I want to be angry, but I decide to be sunshine and lollipops anyway, it's going to come out even. It's going to come out A-okay. White privilege is a joke. White privilege is a term created to vilify the other. That's what it is. Now, I mean, look, I'll go halvesies with you. I'll accept that racism is having a rippling effect because it was institutionalized. And there were families that were under the thumb of laws, rules, and regulations designed to keep them out of prosperity. I will grant you that may have been the case. And as such, I'm willing to accept that those have ripple effects and that we're probably still feeling the effects of those choices and decisions. But I'm not going to say that because I'm white, I have everything, and because you're black, you have nothing. That's insulting. I think you are just as capable as being awesome as I am. I have a friend of mine who he's black. His mom's single, and he's in college, and he manages a business. He's a great guy. He's amazing. I like him a lot. He's a great personality, a good guy to hang out with. He's smart because he worked hard, and his mom cared about him and was willing to instill good values in him, even though he didn't have a dad. And like I said, he's smart, man. Well, you don't know what I've been through. You're probably right. But I guarantee you, whatever it is, the odds of it being insurmountable are extremely low. Get over yourself. And that's the other thing about feminism, is it really is, like Owen Benjamin's got this great, he does this podcast, which you have to listen to. What's the one? I think it's Why Didn't They Laugh? The Gender Wars? No, I don't remember what it is now. But he does this whole thing, and he explains it so well. Just like all the feminism stuff. And it's like, and Peterson really does a great job of explaining how it's like empathy. Everybody goes, oh, you just need to be more empathetic. And Peterson goes, look, empathy is not a positive emotion in and of itself. Empathy can be a negative emotion. Mother bears are empathetic to their cubs when they're chewing you apart. And that's what it is feminism basically, at least modern feminism and the vast majority of feminists have sort of infantilized women and oppressed groups and have said, look, the patriarchy is the evil that is attacking you poor, innocent creatures who can't do anything on your own. So we have to step on behalf of you and do the hard work for you and do the heavy lifting for you. How insulting. The anti-SJWs are standing along the sidelines and going, what do you mean? That you can't do it yourself? Like, well, that's insulting. Well, okay, look, if you got 2 broken legs, you can't very well pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But if you're a low middle class black person living in Austin, Texas, why can't you better yourself? If you're an individual who has who if they really wanted to, could have enough money, get a college degree, get a job, and get that job, get a good job to where you're making a lot of money, get your own house, maybe your own car, maybe your own house, or at least rent a house so we're not living in some crummy apartment all the time. Get married, have it. Why can't you do that? And that's the thing. That's Peterson's whole responsibility shtick. He says, look, a lot of the reason why people fail at life is probably it's their own fault. And so his encouragement is that you confront that reality and you say, okay, my life's not going the way I want to. What if it's my fault? Okay, what do I need to do to make it less my fault? But the feminists aren't interested in that, and the social justice guys aren't really interested in that. They're interested in blaming Republicans for Flint, Michigan. Yeah, that's probably a legitimate concern. I don't know a lot about Flint, Michigan, but it doesn't seem like it's pretty. But they blame Republicans. Get your uterus, regulate your penis, not my uterus, her. And well, I mean, let me pull some better examples out of my hat. Those are pretty bad. Well, with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, it's not black people's fault. It's the cops. It's all the cops. Well, no, the blame is probably a bit more 50-50, 70-25. Is it 70-20? I can't do math, 70-30. Whatever. The fact of the matter is, and it's like, it's all one-sided, right? It's like, it's all white people's fault. It's all men's fault. It's the patriarchy keeping me down. No, it's probably just you. And you letting other people's opinion of you get you down. Well, I don't want to go and be a doctor because people make fun of me for it. Then you're a wuss. Grow a backbone. That's Sargon of Akkad responds to this guy who's like, feminism's good for me. If there was a world where there wasn't feminism, it'd be bad news bears because I'm passive. You don't have a backbone. That's what it is. You don't have a backbone. There's a difference between look. I'm a male, but I'm very high in agreeableness. I'm surely a lot lower in conscientiousness than I'd like to be, right? Very high in conscientiousness, or not conscientiousness, agreeableness, like unbelievable, like higher than most males. I'm sort of more on the feminine spectrum of males, right? Not a traditional man. Not really into sports. Not really into physical combat. I'm not good at them. I enjoy physical labor to an extent, and it kind of gives me a little bit of pride. But I'm pretty passive. I hate confrontation. And you know what I do about that? I don't adopt an ideology that coddles me. I decide to grow a backbone and face my dragons. That's what I do. I tell myself, look, you got to face this fear. You got to face this thing. You hate confrontation. You know that you hate confrontation. So you need to prepare yourself to take on confrontation. I've taken steps in my diet, not as many as I should, but I have taken steps in my diet to reduce my anxiety. I've stopped drinking caffeine because I noticed that when I drank caffeine, it was like anxious situation arise and pew, I'm through the roof, man. Look, I get it, okay? I sympathize with you because you think, man, I can't be a traditional man. I can't be He-Man. I can't make decisions for my family. Why not? Because you're a wuss. I used to think that way. I was like, man, I can't make decisions. I need a wife who will make decisions for me. What's stopping you from making decisions for yourself? And I thought, well, it really comes from low self-esteem. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm smart enough. Okay, so then get to a place where you're good enough. Get to a place where you're smart enough or where you're wise enough. Or just don't be afraid to ask for help. But don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs going, gosh, I wish I had somebody make decisions for me. That goes for women too. You got these women, man. It's like, I want someone to take care of me. Ugh, if that's not pathological. I want someone to take care of me. What does that look like, though? Right? At least, if you're going to be honest and say, I want someone to take care of me, at least lay out. What does that look like? Because I feel like a lot of women sort of like put a cap, and they're like, $80,000 a year or more. Really? Because I guarantee you, a man's paycheck is a small part of a relationship. Now, that being said, financial security is actually a pretty big part of a relationship. But, if you hate each other's guts, it doesn't matter how much money's in the bank. And I think that's the other thing that feminism has done, is it sort of de-emphasizes the role of families. You don't hear a lot of feminists. Now, there's some of them. Don't get me wrong. But usually you hear more MRAs and conservatives talking about families and family values. And that's one of the things that attracts me to Peterson. One of the, gazunda things is Peterson is willing to talk about families and family values, and Stefan Molyneux talks about families and relationships and people and marriage. And you got feminists who talk about how marriage is oppressive and, it's all about you, boo, and you do you, and, darn the consequences. It's like, what do you know? The choices you make affects the rest of your life and affects the community around you. You need to make sure that you're making good decisions. You can't just make decisions based on, well, I feel like I should be able to make this decision because I think that men and women are the exact same. No! It's not how it works. It's more complicated than that. And you're destroying, I really do feel like people are destroying the fabric of society because they're not being intelligent. They're being emotional. I feel like Christian values don't matter because it's based on a God that I think is stupid. I'm not asking you to believe in God to accept Christian values. But you have to accept, I believe, that monogamous, strong, two-parent heterosexual relationships are actually the best indicator of a child's success. A child's success is the best indicator of the future of society. And you have feminists who rail against the family. Second-wave feminists even, who are like, yeah, the destruction of the nuclear family is totally a feminist thing. The family is like a tool of the patriarchy, yo. Like, what? You are insane. It's like, oh, the left, they're like, people used to make fun of conservatives because they'd be like, oh, the left is trying to destroy the family. People would be like, what are you guys, nuts? Well, I don't know. It sure looks like the family unit has been all but destroyed. Because what parts of it haven't been legislated out of existence have been ridiculed in modern media, in academia, in philosophy, in columns. I mean, if you're a dude who wants a virgin for a wife for a lifelong relationship, you're considered like some backwards, radical right conservative nut job. It's like, no, I'm somebody who wants a healthy relationship with a wife so I can have good kids, so we can raise a good family, so we can hopefully make a difference in the world. Because here's another thing, and this is the other thing, is feminists don't look at the facts and numbers and science unless it supports their conclusions. And they write like really stupid, crazy feminist papers and academic research stuff about how glaciers are racist or something. Sexist, excuse me. And they don't look at the numbers. Turns out, the amount of sexual partners you have as a woman decreases the likelihood of your marriage succeeding. Meaning, if you're a virgin and you get married, that marriage has like an 80% success rate as a general rule. If you have like 12 sexual partners before marriage, your marriage has a 20% chance of success. And this is again Peterson a little bit, but really just me. There's a reason why the Bible says what it says. And there's a reason why Christian values have taken us so far. And there's a reason why all hell is seeming to break loose, coinciding with the death of Christian values, the destruction and underpinning or undermining of those values in our society. There's a reason why. It's not a coincidence. It's a heck of a coincidence if so. I do not believe it's a coincidence. Jordan Peterson doesn't. Stefan Molyneux doesn't. Steven Crowder doesn't. But if you're a lefty liberal, you think all those people are just absolutely idiotic, stupid, insane, crazy people. In which case, well, I don't know what else to say. But yeah, it's long, stupid long video rant thing. I hope you enjoyed it. Lord knows I may do more stuff like this in the future. And that's why I'm not a feminist.